This is the EVP Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the EVP Podcast. I am Beaker.
And I'm Ghosty. And no DVO today.
No DVO. He's still dead.
He's still dead?
He's still dead.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Well, it's just us two, and we're rocking the shit.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we didn't have a guest lined up this week. But that's okay. Because, like I said, we're the funny ones.
We got this.
Yeah. What do we do? There's only two of us. I'm not scared.
Scared.
Thanks for listening to our last episode on the Bell Witch. Thanks again for Lurch for coming and being a part of that episode. It was a lot of fun.
That was fun.
I had a lot of fun doing
that. A lot
of
tangents, but a lot of fun.
Yes. And then we've noticed on YouTube our Devil's Den episode has been kind of blown up with the comments and the views. So,
yeah, a lot of ex-employees or current employees that still work there that are sending some stuff.
Or ex-inmates as well.
Oh, true. So
we had some ex-inmates. They told us it was called the box, not the shoe.
Right. We're just going off of what we saw on TV.
Ghost Adventures, because that was our only source
that was the only source of this
reference.
Yeah.
That's all we had.
Because it just closed down and there was no investigations ever there till that day. So we jumped on it. We
sure did, and it worked.
But now that I know that people work there, I kind of want to try to get in there.
Yeah, it's a new facility. It's opened up to. It's not a prison anymore.
Right.
It's something else. But yeah, it's open for whatever they're doing now.
Oh, is it open for investigations though?
I don't know if it's open for investigations.
But there's people that do work there.
But there's people that currently work there. Well, someone that commented on the YouTube actually said that they currently work there. So.
Yeah, I want to talk to you some more because I would like to get in there. That would be pretty dope.
It would be fun.
California's not too far.
It is not. There's lots of places in California.
Yes, there is.
Winchester House.
I still need to go check that out.
That place is crazy fun.
Yeah, but I mean, California's so long like Florida, so there's like so much.
There is.
Yeah.
Well, hell, just to get from Disneyland to Winchester Mansion, it was like an 8-hour drive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, California's huge.
Oh, yeah. It's a good, 10 to 12 hours from tip to the other tip.
Tip to tip. Tip to tip. Just the tips. So, yeah. That's where we're at.
Yes.
Do you know what? We talked about Tennessee last week, didn't we?
We sure did.
We're staying in Tennessee this week.
Let's keep going. Let's
just
stay there. Yeah. I got my bag still there.
We're going to stay in Tennessee for a little bit. Eventually, we're moving to Kentucky.
Okay.
Actually, it's all in Kentucky. I lied. We're in Kentucky.
All right. Perfect.
I don't know.
Let's stay in Kentucky.
We're Kentucky. There's haunted shit there, too. But we're not talking about haunted shit this week, actually. We've talked about psychics and mediums and stuff like that. We haven't talked about a psychic that was able to diagnose medical ailments while being under hypnosis.
Yeah. The whole thing about this guy was fascinating as shit.
It was scary and fascinating.
It's scary, fascinating.
Scary, fascinating. So we're talking about Edgar Cayce.
Yeah, Edgar Cayce. And I didn't know about him until you mentioned him.
I didn't know either. I listened to another podcast. I listened to a podcast. Apparently, I'm from Boston every now and then. I listened to another podcast. It's called Unsolved Mysteries, something like that. And I came across this guy, Edgar Cayce. This dude was born March 18th, 1877 in Beverly, Kentucky.
Not Tennessee.
See, this is where I got confused because it's in my notes here. I have it's 100 miles north of Knoxville, Tennessee,
which is a pretty long distance away for them to use that reference,
right? Especially in 1877. It's not like 100 miles now. Yeah, I can get there in about an hour. 100 miles then, probably not so much.
3 days on horse.
Yeah, right. Or 14 years on foot.
Same.
So. He was born to his parents, obviously, because
way.
That's how life works.
No way.
Sometimes you're born to somebody else's parents. They were farmers. They had 6 kids, and when Edgar was a child, he claimed he saw a ghost.
Or was it an angel?
Well, no, before the angel, he saw a ghost that he said was his dead grandfather.
Oh, okay.
And he said it was a ghost because it became transparent if he looked hard enough. So if he focused, he looked hard enough, he can see through it.
So he must have been having a long conversation or something with his spirit for him to realize that he could stare hard enough to see through. Yeah. Because usually anytime I've seen something, it's gone quick.
Yeah, it's there and then it's gone.
Yeah. So he must have been having a conversation.
Probably. So this is all before the age of 10. About the age of 10, It's when he started really becoming a huge fan of the Bible and going to church. And by the time he was age 12, he had read the Bible front to back over a dozen times.
Right. That's
what 10-year-old does. I don't know what 10-year-old now is like, yep, I want to. I guess it's 1877. I've never done it once. Well, I guess at this point it's 1887. He's like, there's probably nothing to do.
There's probably no books
read the Bible. It's great. But this is where we were talking about what you're talking about. So 1889. Mm-hmm. He's behind his house in the woods.
Yeah, he had woods behind his house, and he had like a fort or something.
Yeah, he had a little hut or fort or something. He's there hanging out in his little hidey spot. Mm-hmm. He's reading his Bible, and all of a sudden there's like this big flash of light. And all of a sudden there's this winged woman standing in front of him. And this person had asked what he wanted most in the world. And he said he wanted to be able to help people, especially sick children. And then he also decided that eventually he wanted to be a missionary. And then, so after that, the lady just kind of, another flash of light, she's gone, right? She was talking to him, like he was afraid at first when she showed up because, what kid wouldn't be? If there's this big flash of light, all of a sudden this woman with wings is standing in front of you. And we'll just call her an angel from here on out because that's what he thought she was.
Right.
So this angel is all of a sudden in front of you, talking very... I think it was her voice. It was very soothing and calm is what kind of made him feel somewhat comfortable to talk to her. But after this happened, he was super excited. He goes running in the house to tell his mom what had happened. And he's like, am I going crazy? And his mom's like, no, your prayers have just been answered.
So I wonder if this was just like a spirit that presented themselves like an angel because he was reading the Bible so much.
Maybe.
So that probably was just like, if I show myself like this, he'll probably get it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what he's familiar with because he's obviously read the Bible a buttload of
times.
By the age of 12, I've never even read it once.
I'm still 40, never read it. Yep.
But
I probably never will.
So like he was super excited. He couldn't sleep that night because he was just thinking about like what the hell just happened. Like, especially he's 12 years old at this point. Like, what kid, when you see something like that, even now as adults, like we see a ghost and we're just like, oh, this is cool, and we think about it all night, and then sometimes we sleep. So, I mean, he's exhausted. He goes to school the next day. His teacher is like giving a spelling test and asks him to spell the word cabin, and he can't remember how to spell it. And it's a simple word, especially for a 12-year-old. Like, they should be able to spell it easy. Yeah. He couldn't remember how to spell it. So his teacher was frustrated and upset. So his punishment that day was to stay after school and write the word cabin on the board 500 times. So he gets home that night. His dad is furious that he failed the spelling test. To the point to where he knocked him out of his chair.
I don't know why they don't just say he beat his ass.
He beat his ass.
He beat his ass. He beat his ass silly. Like
pretty much. He knocked him.
Instead they say they knocked him out of his chair.
He politely
that was a slap across the face. He flew out across the room.
Politely tipped the chair over and expressed his frustration.
In the 1800s, they laid the smack down on kids.
Pretty much.
All day long.
Yep.
Talk to any old person. They got.
I think they pretty much did up until like the 90s or the early 2000s.
I would say the 90s.
Before every kid's like, I'm going to sue you.
Calling the cops on their parents.
Like, come on.
Yeah. As soon as DCFS became a thing.
Right. Stupid. Get in the way of... Some kids need an ass whooping.
Yeah, some kids need their ass whooped. You see some stupid ass kids doing some dumb shit out there, like, they didn't get their ass kicked as a kid.
So yeah, so
so he was behaved now.
So he was behaved. His dad like tested him, and he was still getting the answers wrong and shit. So I guess his dad left him to study.
He told him he asked for a nap. He asked if he could just have like a little nap or something. So he said he'll be back in 5 minutes. So I guess like right before he fell asleep, he says he heard the angel's voice again saying, put your head down on the books and they'll help you. And he's like, what? Whatever. And took a nap using the books as a pillow. His dad comes back, wakes him up. And then all of a sudden, like, he knows everything. He had it all memorized.
He had the whole book memorized. Like, so every question his dad asked him, he had the answers to. So his dad gets mad again because he thinks that before he was just messing with him. So his dad politely knocks him out of the chair one more time.
Politely.
Which makes sense because you're sitting there like you're playing dumb, and then all of a sudden you know everything. It's like, come on, kid.
Yeah.
So what's funny is like from then on, Edgar started sleeping on all of his school books to absorb the information, and apparently it actually worked because by 1892, he was actually the best student in his class. And when his teacher asked him, like, what was he doing? He, like, explained how he slept on the books and he could see the pages.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
So, yeah, he was really good at school after sleeping on books. And he got to the point where, I guess this was a common thing back in the late 1800s, where children would get to about grade 9 and then just be done with school and they'd start working. Like,
yeah, you're a teenager now, you can make some money.
Yep, back then, like, it was very common for working children to get a grade 9 education and start working. So that's what he did. And he learned how to do a lot of things. I guess he learned photography at one point. And he did some other stuff. Like, he became really involved in the church, the Disciples of Christ, which is just a Christian church of the time.
Okay.
He made it a point to read his Bible at least once a year. He attended the church, and he also taught Sunday school there and recruited missionaries.
Recruited them for what?
To go out and teach, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Now, he said that he could see people's auras, which is a thing. Like, I know people that can see auras, and I've read books that actually teach you, like, pretty much anyone can see an aura if you have the proper training. Now, he said he also spoke to angels and that he heard the voices of some of his deceased relatives.
Did you ever see auras?
No. I've gotten really good at guessing aura colors. I'm like 95% right.
So when I was a kid, I never saw colors, but I would see light around people. But I would never see colors.
Yeah, I've never seen any of that.
But it was only, it was weird. It was when I was a kid.
Yeah, I've never had that. I know at some point I was able to, like, I'd say about 90 to 95% of the time accurately guess people's aura colors.
Nice.
And it's usually their personality aura. Like, there's 7 layers to your aura, like your chakra. So your personality aura is the one that I know Peaches can see, or Brandy. And those are the ones that I've been able to guess accurately.
Oh, nice.
So Edgar could do all this. He was doing all this stuff, and he had these gifts, and he wasn't quite sure, like, if this was divine, if it was, spiritually given to him, or how he got these gifts. So I guess in 1990, he started a business. 1900.
Oh, you said
19. I did say 1990. I added 100 years there. Yeah, this dude's old. In 1900, he started a business with his dad to sell insurance. And later that year, he developed a very bad case of laryngitis to the point where he couldn't even talk. Like, it hurt so bad to talk. And this is where his photography came in handy. So he became a photographer. Because
you can't be a salesman without talking.
But you can take pictures without talking. You
sure can.
Apparently. You don't have to say smile and say cheese. I'm assuming he's doing, like, maybe nature photography and stuff like that. Or, I mean, it's easy, like, if you want someone to move over, you just kind of wave at them to move over. But that's one of the professions he had. And I think he had this laryngitis for like a year before this hypnotist came to town. Mm-hmm. He called himself the Laughing Man. His name was Hart. That's his Hart the Laughing Man. Hart the Laughing Man.
Stage name.
He was performing 1901 at the Hopkinsville Opera House, and he heard about Edgar's condition. And he's like, you know what? I can cure this. He's like, give me $200. I can fix this. If I can't, I'll give the money back. Right? So Casey's like, or Edgar's like, yeah, I'll do this. He did it in a controlled office in Manning Brown. He was a local throat specialist. Mm-hmm. So this hypnotist, the Laughing Man, puts him into a trance. And while he was he was talking just fine. Right. But as soon as he woke up, he was back to not being able to talk. And this happened like several times. Like, they kept doing the hypnosis, and every time, like, while he was under, he could talk just fine, but as soon as he woke up, he couldn't talk anymore. Like, the pain was back. So they were getting frustrated. Eventually, Hart had to move on because he had appointments in other cities. And eventually, Edgar, he met with other hypnotists. There was one named John Duncan Quackenbot. And I think the person finally that was able to help him was Al Lane.
And didn't he just, like, when he was under and he was talking normal, he all of a sudden diagnosed what was wrong?
So I think Al was the first person to ask him what was wrong. And this was Edgar's like, oh yeah, there's, nerve damage in my larynx. Yeah, there was like a blockage or something. And I guess when Cayce was under, he tells Lane to tell him, he's like, tell me to do this. So he tells him that all he has to do is increase the blood circulation to his throat. So Lane's like, okay, do that. And so Cayce, apparently when he was told to do this, his neck turned bright red. And after about 20 minutes of this happening, Edgar just randomly goes, okay, I'm cured.
Or he says something like, oh, I know how to fix this. And he like coughed up some like bloody.
Well, that's after so he wakes up and he coughs up this like a glob of blood. And his voice was fine.
Yeah, it came back.
Like, so he basically like diagnosed what was wrong with his throat.
And cleared it.
While he was under hypnosis. Wakes up and coughs up this blood, and then he's fine. Now, it did come back every now and then, and it took a couple more times of going under hypnosis to fix this. But, I mean, after a year of not being able to talk, when he coughs up this blood, all of a sudden he's fine again. Mm-hmm. Which is crazy.
Yeah. That's pretty nuts. But being able to self-diagnose yourself and clear it, too.
Yeah, while under hypnosis. And keep in mind, like, at this point, he's had no medical training.
Right, yeah. Like, eighth grade,
and then he went into the workforce, eventually selling insurance, and then becoming a photographer. He hasn't studied anything medical. He's not a doctor.
Right, and he came from Kentucky, where it's like, south, and it's...
Yeah, and then we know what happened about 20 years later with the tuberculosis.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think it had anything to do with that. So, Al Lane had talked to Edgar about some of the problems that he was having, and he I guess he had like a stomach bug or something, and Edgar again went under hypnosis and was able to accurately diagnose the problems that Al was having and what to do to fix them.
Nice. And so that became a thing after that, right? Like,
yeah, so
he found out that he can help other people. Then it was on after that.
Al was like, yeah, we should form a partnership and start a business helping people. And Edgar was kind of like, yeah, we can do this. I just don't want to make any money off of it. I just want to help people. So for the next little bit, Al and Edgar were helping a lot of people. They were coming in and with their ailments, and Edgar was actually able to put himself under this hypnotic trance and diagnose these people and cure them. Naturally, there's going to be a lot of skeptics because, one, he's not a doctor. Mm-hmm. And some of the problems we ran into is people were like, okay, he's not a doctor. Maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about. And then some people, when they try to take this stuff that he prescribed to their actual doctors, the doctors are like, no, I'm not going to give you a prescription for this. I didn't diagnose this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it got to the point to where I think Edgar and Al kind of split ways when Edgar found out that Al was only bringing in rich patients.
Oh, and charging him a lot, probably.
Probably. So I think Al was getting rich off this. Edgar, like I said, wasn't taking any money. He wanted nothing. He didn't want the money.
Well, there was a time, I don't know how late into his life this was, but people were asking him about, for selfish reasons, wanting to know certain things.
Yeah.
And if he ever did something that somebody was going to benefit from, he would get really sick. And then he decided at that point he was never going to do that again.
Yeah, that's I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, so whenever because people would ask about for selfish reasons to gain something, and he gave them certain answers for them to gain, he would get sick.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, his whole thing is he was a good Christian, obviously, read the Bible a lot. But his whole thing was it was about helping people.
Right.
And helping them become better. And when he found out that like I said, Lane was only bringing in rich people. He kind of broke off that partnership, and he continued to do private. He called them readings, but he was seeing anybody that needed to be helped, not just rich people. And then he ended up marrying the love of his life. Her name was Gertrude Evans in 1903. They ended up moving to Bowling Green, had 3 kids, and I guess it's like Gertrude she disapproved of the readings he was doing, and he wasn't sure of the morality of what he was doing. I think this is while he was still with Lane, but it got to the point where, like I said, they went their separate ways, and then it kind of came to Edgar. He's like, okay, I still want to help people, and I want to, like I said, he was running into the problem with like doctors weren't prescribing these medications that he was recommending to help people with. And so he decided he was going to open up his own hospital and make his own staff of doctors that are going to do what he says to do, right? Mm-hmm. Problem is he didn't have any money because he wasn't taking any money from all these rich people that were needing help.
Right.
And it was funny because like when I was reading that only rich people were being brought in, I was kind of thinking like, looking at nowadays, like there's so many stupid like surgeries and holistic shit. Like I do some like holistic remedies for myself. Like, you know, I'll use crystals or I'll use like certain medicated rubs like
right.
That kind of help out. Even like Andy Kaufman, like when he was dying, if you ever watched Man on the Moon, like he had cancer and he was trying everything. He used crystals and stuff like that. I do believe that some of that holistic stuff works, but I also believe in Western medicine. Like I think they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And where, like I said, he was not getting the doctors to cooperate with him. He's like, this is how it's going to be. And I was going like with rich people, you see nowadays, they'll do anything like from liposuction to Botox and just they'll throw money at random shit because they think it's going to help them. They don't know. They don't care if it's like been scientifically proven to work. They're like, hey, you know, the rich dude says this works, or this guy says this works, so I'm going to do it. Here's my money. They don't care because they have a shit ton of money to waste on stupid stuff. So Edgar decides he's going to go to Texas because he's a psychic. He knows where the oil is. He's going to strike it rich. After 3 years, he has less money than what he had before he went there. And it obviously didn't work. So what he went back to doing is doing these readings for rich people, trying to get money to build his hospital.
Nice. That's the way to do it.
Yes. I'm jumping all over the place. I don't know where we're at. I do know that at one point, like, he was invited to like a university to talk on hypnosis, like, not that he was a doctor or anything like that. So he was invited to this university and he was doing a demonstration of how hypnosis works, and he puts himself under hypnosis. And you've got these several doctors there kind of monitoring him. I guess there was someone in the room, and when Edgar was doing his readings, he tried to do as little research as possible, if none at all, on his patients. He didn't want to know anything about them. He just wanted to help fix their problems. So they picked someone in the room at random. He was actually able to tell them what his ailment was, and even what his blood pressure and his temperature was while under hypnosis. And these doctors are thinking like, maybe he's not really under this trance. Maybe he's not really hypnotized. He's probably got someone feed him the information. So they start taking like needles and like hat pins and start jabbing it into him. Like they poke his cheek with a hat pin. They shove needles in his hands and his wrists, and he's not responding at all. Like, and this is obviously stuff that should be causing pain. He's not responding. Then there's another doctor that's just like still not convinced that he's under this trance and that people are like feeding him the information. So he takes a pen, like a pen knife. I'm assuming it's like a little scalpel type thing. And he pries up one of Edgar's fingernails.
Oh my God.
Yeah, while he's in this trance. Zero response from Edgar.
Oh, I bet it hurt like hell when he woke up.
Oh, it did.
Oh my hell.
He woke up and he felt the pain from all the pins and needles and everything, and the fingernail being pried up all at once when he woke up.
Oh my God.
So just imagine like all of that.
Screaming in pain.
Right. And he was pissed, rightfully so.
Yeah, your fingernails lifted up. Holy shit.
Right. So he's just like, he yells at him. He's like, you guys are never going to believe anything I say. He's like, so he stopped doing demonstrations for hypnosis. He stopped trying to prove. Right.
He got his ass
He got his ass kicked again. So he stopped trying to prove to people that he was legit and just went back to helping people.
And so when people, he ended up doing like over 14,000 readings that were documented.
Yeah.
And so, but I think like over 20,000 in total. But these 14,000 are all documented in a library, like word for word. And they were all...
Yeah, he hired a stenographer
at
one point to write down everything that he said while he was under. And he actually went back, and this is what I thought was crazy, because he went back and went over these notes of the stenographer. And even before the stenographer, when Al was taking notes and everything he was saying, he would go back to teach himself about medicine from the readings he was doing.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. This is like self-taught medicine.
Well, I know to this day, some people are still going through his stuff that have certain conditions that he was helping other people with. And they'll read up on what he asked them to do, and they'll apply things to themselves. But because everything he was giving, like when he would do a reading, it was like so specific to that person.
Yeah.
So if you had that same kind of disease or whatever ailment, it might not work 100% for you that it did for that person, but you can take those ideas and apply it to yourself to see what does work. But I thought that was pretty crazy that there was that many documented in a library that you can actually go read up on.
Yeah. I mean, I believe there's a facility still open in his name that still does some of these treatments and stuff. I don't know if they do the readings or not, but there is his facility that he originally opened. I know it kind of went under. They lost money at one point and they ended up having to close it, but I believe it's been reopened. Their website said they were established in 1937, so it's been open for a while.
Oh wow, okay.
But I know that like he got to the point to where he eventually got arrested and was put on trial for fraud.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And how did he?
Well, there was no way to actually prove that he was a fraud. Like,
oh yeah,
they didn't have any evidence, so I think they declared it a mistrial. But yeah, there was I remember there was one lady that came to his house and was worried because her sister was pregnant and her doctor had told her that her and the baby were going to die. So the sister came to Edgar, and when he went into the trance, he had told her, well, this is how you save the baby, but unfortunately there's no way to save your sister. And from what I understand, the baby actually was saved and the sister did die. So it was crazy. I mean, there's so many cases, so many examples we can give, but this is just a few of them. I know there's one that was a girl that had the flu for like 3 years, and this is back when he was working with Al, and Edgar had told Al to like readjust her spine. And after doing this for a couple of weeks, Edgar finally goes, all the instructions coming while he's under trance, obviously. Mm-hmm. And Edgar finally goes, okay, she's fine. And it was like a couple of days later, the girl was back to normal health after being sick for 3 years.
Crazy.
And then like caught up on everything on school in the next 3 months.
Yeah.
So it's just insane, like how much this guy did. He even had a few predictions. I'm not
like he predicted the market crash, the Wall Street crashing. When year was that? When the market crashed in the 20s or what was it? Yeah, in the 20s.
Yeah, I think
he also predicted World War II and the countries that were going to like Japan and Germany combining forces. Like he called that. He called what were the other ones? He has a prediction that it hasn't come true yet, but it's going to happen. Who knows how long it'll happen? But he talked about China becoming the world's like the leader and like the biggest Christian country, which was all I don't know how long that's going to be till that happens, but that's crazy. That's his thought process on that. He also believed a lot in the lost city of Atlantis.
Yes.
And about the Akashic records being underneath the Sphinx's paw or something like that. Is it under the paw that he thinks it? And he wants to dig, but Egypt won't allow it.
That one I don't know. I didn't hear about that one.
Okay, so underneath one of the foot of the Sphinx. He believes that's where the Akashic records are, and also a flying vehicle from Atlantis.
That's crazy. So I know he said he found, or he knew where Atlantis was, but I don't know if they ever. I don't think they actually, obviously, ever found it, because we would have heard about it by now.
Right.
But so some of the predictions he made that came true, like you said, the stock market crash in 1929, World War II, the pole shift.
Oh yeah, he did talk about the pole shifting.
The question was, what great change, or the beginning of what change, if any, is to take place in the Earth of the year 2000 to 2001? And he said there was a shifting of poles, or a new cycle begins. And he did this reading on August 11th of 1936. So, and the poles actually did shift. There's the convergence of communication companies.
Oh, and he talked about like all these different devices coming together as one.
Yep.
That's what we carry in our pockets.
Gave that prediction in 1929. There's the life of the essences. I described the essences in details many years before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
I was going to say, the Dead Sea Scrolls.
He predicted that one. He predicted the blood used as a diagnostic tool. He said during the course of physical reading given for one individual, he read and foresaw that in future medical advancements that they might make a diagnosis from a drop of blood, which they can now. Like, they draw blood to
check for
everything now.
Yeah.
And La Nina and El Nino.
Yeah, the weather effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because those didn't start happening till later.
Yeah, right. So he predicted that in 1926. So, I mean, he made a lot of predictions, and a lot of them didn't come true.
Right.
Kind of like Nostradamus. They predicted a lot of stuff. Some of it actually came true, which is pretty trippy.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that like some of this actually happened. And he was predicting this stuff, like the polar shift, 70 years before it happened.
Right.
Right? So,
knowing that that's going to happen, that's crazy. So what's nuts too is this guy doing all the stuff he's doing at this time, and people are not believing it, and they're witnessing it with their eyes and still not believing it. But yet they'll read the Bible and believe everything in that word for word because they were told to.
What's funny is people still do that.
Right, exactly. But then
people
they'll see stuff
nowadays
in their face, but they'll believe this book just because they were told to.
Right.
But yet they're seeing stuff with their eyes, and they're not going to believe it. They're going to do all these things to prove it's wrong, and then still can't prove it's wrong, but still not believe it.
Well, another thing he talked about, and we've talked about on this show before, reincarnation.
Right.
Like, Western civilizations, we don't really believe in that. Eastern civilizations more so than we do. Obviously, we talked about it on the Spirit Kids episode, or the reincarnation one.
Yeah.
But he was actually able to find passages in the Bible that talked about rebirth, and he took that to mean that like reincarnation is a thing. He was actually finding passages in the Bible that supported reincarnation.
He even talks about him, the way he asked like how he got his abilities. And the answer he got from himself was that you pick these up in a past life, and they're still with you.
Right. And, what's funny is I know a lot of people that they believe that now, like the gifts they've had is stuff they've learned in a previous life, and it's just continued on into this life.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of these religions now, especially Christian religions, it's a one and done thing. Mm-hmm. And I just, from my own personal experiences, I don't believe that's to be true.
Right.
And it's funny because like you've got Edgar Cayce, who we've mentioned several times already, loves the Bible, has read the Bible a lot. And like we said, a lot of these Christian religions don't believe in reincarnation. But from his trances and
right,
like you said, he found
things outside of his own religion now.
Right. And I mean, that's probably another reason why you got people that are just like, he's full of crap. Because if you say something against what this religion completely believes in and teaches, people call you crazy.
Exactly. But yet you can prove them wrong and
right.
still get called crazy.
And you still see that shit nowadays, especially on Facebook, and like you get proven wrong on something, and like I can show you all the evidence in the world, and there's still people that would be like, no, that's not right.
Yeah, I know some people like that.
And this is what this guy kind of dealt with. And like you said, he did like 14,000 documented cases. I know, I think I've mentioned him briefly on another episode, and I kind of want to do an episode on James Randi.
Okay, yeah. The one that was trying to disprove.
He was a professional magician that spent most of his career disproving psychics, like you said. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about the one. There's a video online where the guy is trying to move the pages with the phone book.
Yeah.
And so James is like, okay, try it now. And he puts a bunch of little styrofoam balls around it.
To see them move with air if he's blowing.
To see if he's blowing on it or pushing air and not actually using psychic kinetic abilities. And he's like, I can't do it. The guy's like, oh, the heat and the styrofoam, and made all these excuses. So James Randi, and you can find a lot of his videos, and I think we might do a more extensive episode on James at some point in time. Mm-hmm. But James looked into Edgar Cayce, obviously, because that's what he did. Mm-hmm. He tried to disprove. And I know that like it was Edgar's kids or his grandkids or something like that. They went through his cases, and they were saying that Edgar had like an 87% success rate with his patients.
And that was due to the patients, because it depended on the patients doing what he told them to do.
Well, see, and the thing is like when they did the study, they picked 150
out of the thousands.
Out of thousands. And then they went with, okay, did they respond positively, negatively, or not at all? And there's probably about half of those that said nothing. They didn't respond at all. So they removed all of those. You're down to like 74 cases now. And that's how they got their 87% positive. And it's just like, I mean, they picked these at random, but still it's just kind of like, that's a great way to skew the results of your poll here.
Yeah, but they also talked about some of the things I had listened to were that the patients, if depended on how much they followed of his. If they followed his words 100%, they had a 100% success rate. If they half-assed it, they got a half-assed success. If they didn't follow it, they didn't get any results.
And that would make sense. And see, and this is where I was like kind of talking about Eastern medicines, because that's pretty much all he prescribed was Eastern medicines, like holistic remedies and stuff like that. And like you said, like if they followed it, I mean, like sometimes this holistic stuff, it does work. And in this case, it's just weird that I don't know how I would explain it, that this dude was able to hypnotize himself and accurately diagnose ailments and then prescribe the treatment to it.
Yeah.
Like I said, there was a lot of people he did help. I mean, it's just like anything. Like when we talk about the Warrens or that other guy that had a book, Hollenholzer, sorry. I'm sure they helped, they all did thousands and thousands of cases, and you're not ever going to have 100% success rate.
Right.
Not everything is going to be 100% positive. So, I mean, it makes sense that obviously not everything that Edgar prescribed or told people to do is going to be effective, especially if they don't listen to what he said. It's the same thing, like if I go to my doctor and, like right now I'm having a foot problem, and if my doctor tells me to stay off of it for a month, and I go, well, I know better than you, doctor. Yeah, it's probably not going to heal properly.
It's going to take longer.
It's going to take longer. Yeah. It's not going to work at all. So that makes sense. Like why some of these things wouldn't work is if they don't listen to what he's saying, or like I mentioned earlier, that they go and try to get the prescription from their actual doctors.
Right.
And the doctors are like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, because they're like, I didn't do this. No.
Right.
But yeah, this dude I'm surprised that it's not as big of a thing, or that he's not talked about more.
Right. Because
this happened during, in the last 100 years, to where people were witnessing this and just sweeping it under a rug like, nah.
Yeah, and this started toward the end of the spiritualist movement as well. So
yeah, and plus back then, you didn't have the science that we do now, to where, oh man, if this was happening now, all the cool stuff, they could check his brain while he goes under and everything, right, and see where his brain's going and like
that would
the
be
brain
awesome.
waves. That would be really cool to see how it see him take off and like all of a sudden his brain waves just switched into something else. That'd be cool. That
would be cool, because technology like that does exist. I have actually seen, and I talk about like holistic things doesn't work sometimes, and like I actually saw this meme on Facebook the other day where they talked about how the Hadron Collider, whatever that thing is, that machine, how it's like
shoot the atoms at each other.
The most advanced piece of technology on the face of the earth, and they can't figure out the cure to cancer or something like that. But they're like,
we can smash atoms together.
But obviously your crystals are going to work. If we have the technology to do this other stuff, like obviously crystals are going to work. The thing is, like I've physically seen. I was at an expo, where I saw like how a crystal changed someone's energy. It was actually my own energy.
Oh, cool.
I was doing this like aura reading, and they have one of these machines. I actually want to get one of these where you kind of, I think it's a camera facing you, and it like reads your aura and it gives you a reading based on what your aura colors are. And the funny thing is like the lady asked, there was like one of my auras that were like was kind of off or was like not where it should have been. And she's like, are you really stressed out about something? And I'm like, no, not really. And she's like, here, hold this. And I knew exactly what she was holding me. It was just this giant obsidian ball. And when she put it in my hand, you could actually see the aura stuff changing on the computer.
Oh, interesting.
So I know that the technology exists, that they could track this stuff and see exactly what's going on with them. So it would be interesting to see someone come forward today that could do the same stuff, like especially like let's say Edgar, because he's been dead since like 1947, and we've seen smaller turnarounds on some of the reincarnation stories we've talked about. 1945. So it would be interesting to see if like Edgar
comes back,
has
the same abilities,
right, and starts doing the same thing, and then we're in the day and age where we can monitor it with science.
That would be so badass.
That would be cool. But yeah, I mean, I guarantee he helped a lot of people, and
I do kind of want to look into some of these records that were in this library, just to kind of see some of these diagnoses and how it was worded and what he said and everything. That'd be kind of cool.
It would be. Yeah, we should look that up.
Yeah, maybe one of these days. One of these days.
But, so there's our half-assed story on Edgar Cayce.
It's a good story.
Half-assed. It was a good story. Yeah, no, I'm like you said, I'm surprised there's not a lot more stuff on this. I mean, there's a couple books that I think his kids have written.
And after we talked about him and after I looked some things up, there were things that I have heard of him throughout life, but not much. It was only about like Atlantis and thinking that certain, about being buried under the Sphinx and things like that. I do remember hearing things like that a long time ago, but not knowing that who it was that they were referencing. But yeah, pretty badass.
Real quick, some cool people that actually like supported and believed in what Edgar was doing. President Woodrow Wilson.
Nice.
Thomas Edison, Irving Berlin, and George Gershwin. They were all people that I think sought advice from Edgar.
That's pretty badass. Well, all right. Should we call that an episode?
I think we should. Before we do, though, make sure you go into our social medias and liking and following us, evp.pod at Facebook and Instagram. You can find our YouTube if you want to watch us instead of just listening to us. We're at evp.pod on YouTube. If you have a story you want to share with us, evp.pod@gmail.com. Also, check out our Ghost Stop affiliate link if you're looking for paranormal gear.
Yeah,
that's where we get all of our stuff.
Because you know what? We're going to have some investigations probably coming up this year, so you might want to get some equipment ready for that. Well, all right. Ghost, you don't play that.
Peace out, butterflies.
This is the EVP Podcast.